Now available in paperback and Kindle. Vampires stalk the darkness of the Eternal Night. Get your copy of Eternal Night in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com. Two people were killed and 16 or 19 others were injured, depending on reports, in an incident that took place in Ybor City, Florida.
Right now, Tampa police reviewing every second of surveillance video of a deadly shooting that happened in Ybor City over the weekend.
A 22-year-old is now arrested and charged in that shooting that killed 2 people and injured 16 more. But Tampa police say they believe at least 2 shooters opened fire early Sunday morning. 10 Tampa Bay's reporter Andrea Lyon live from TPD headquarters this morning with the latest in this investigation. Good morning, Andrea.
Hey, good morning. As we have been reporting, this all happened on a very busy stretch of Ybor City right at bar close. Investigators say that all started with a fight between 2 groups, which of course ended then in gunfire and death. But those gunshots, they first broke out just before 3 a.m. on East 7th Avenue and North 17th Street. Video did catch it as the firing happened just as bars were closing, sending people running, screaming, trying to get out of the way there. We know a 14-year-old as well as a 20-year-old, they were killed. Tampa police tell us 15 more victims were shot. Another was seriously hurt with different injuries. More than 50 officers were on scene, and investigators say an arrest was quickly made thanks to the many tips that came in fast from around the community.
What happened is completely unacceptable, and the Tampa Police Department is not going to tolerate it.
We've got to have those difficult decisions, or we're going to come back to this position each and every day, and we're better than that.
Tampa Mayor Jane Castor reacting to the city reaching national headlines for another mass shooting in our country. Castor did tweet this out, saying yet again a senseless loss of life by those choosing to settle a dispute with firearms. Lives lost and others forever changed. To what end? Now, as we mentioned, a 22-year-old Tyrell Phillips has been arrested. He's been charged with second-degree murder with a firearm. He will be in court this morning. And ahead on Brightside, we'll have more on the victims as well as mass shooting statistics as they sit right now. Live in Tampa, Andrea Lyon, 10 Tampa Bay.
Now, in this alleged incident that took place in Ybor City, Florida, in Tampa, bars and nightclubs were letting out after having Halloween-themed events at their venues. And as people were coming out of these Halloween-themed events, some dressed in costumes, they were looking to get ready to either go home or looking to go out here and continue having festivities outside on the streets. And as people were letting out of the bars coming and nightclubs coming up with their plans for later on in the morning, 2 groups of individuals decided to have a confrontation with each other. And as they had an alleged confrontation with each other, someone in the groups began to pull out firearms and they began shooting at other people in the group. And as these 2 groups were firing shots at each other, people scrambled for cover, some knocking over metal tables to find some shields from the gunfire. Others were scrambling to go into doorways and alleyways of the nightclubs and bars that they were coming out of, trying to find cover from the gunfire. Unfortunately, 2 individuals wound up losing their lives, a 22-year-old man and a 14-year-old boy. Now, the police in Tampa see this as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the alleged actions that 22-year-old Tyrell Phillips was arrested for, it fits the pattern and profile of behavior of beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. Now, Tyrell Phillips, who was 22 years old, was the only person arrested for his alleged participation in this shooting, and he was quickly caught by individuals on the street. And while he tried to deny what happened, what they had was evidence of witnesses who saw him participate in the shooting, and they also had video footage to show him participating in this shooting. Now, this entire shooting really looks like to me something I talk about in my book in a chapter of The Man Crisis called Gangs and the Man Crisis, and it looked like to me that this possibly could be a gang-related shooting because only a group in a gang would think to go out here and participate in a shooting on a busy street where there would be plenty of witnesses and video footage, because these are males who are more caught up in their feelings about getting even with individuals in a set, more than thinking critically about the consequences of their actions regarding participating in a crime. And because these individuals basically have a hive mind where all they're thinking about is trying to sate their feelings about getting back at a group of individuals, they're not thinking about critically things that are more important, such as their freedom. Now, this could be the main motivation for a Tyrell Phillips to allegedly participate in this shooting, because he wanted to go out here and get even with the individuals in the other group. And as he was acting on his feelings, thinking only about sating those emotions about getting back at those other individuals, he wasn't really thinking critically about the consequences of his actions on all of the other people on that street, and he wasn't thinking critically about the consequences regarding his own intangibles, such as his own health, safety, and freedom. Because when it comes to beta males who are a part of gangs, usually these kinds of individuals, all they're thinking about is trying to win favor with the group as related to the covert contract they have created with the group, believing that the group will go out here and look out for them. Unfortunately, what they don't understand is that as a part of a covert contract, there is nothing expressly presented as related to these individuals looking out for anybody else in the group. And when it comes to these groups, again, these are gynocentric, loose-knit groups. They are not organizations of men. No, they are disorganized males who act mostly on their impulses. And as they're acting on their impulses, they never really think about the long-term ramifications of their actions. And this is exacerbated by these individuals basically drinking alcohol, because when you have individuals who drink alcohol, what happens to them is that their inhibitions are lowered, and as their inhibitions are lowered, they are more likely to participate in impulsive behavior, and as they participate in this impulsive behavior based on their emotions, they go out here and act in a way that winds up doing damage to not only their lives, but the lives of those around them. And that's what happened here on this street in Ybor City. These individuals who were possibly part of gangs decided to go out here, and when they saw each other, decided to get into it with each other, ruining the evening of Halloween-themed festivities for all of the people on those streets. And as they pulled out a firearm and started shooting at each other, what they did was wind up taking the lives of a 22-year-old individual and a 14-year-old boy. And as Tyrell Phillips participated in this shooting, he basically went from being a free man to becoming a man in crisis inside of the criminal justice system. Because now that he's gone out here on a public street where all of these bars and nightclubs have mounted all of these video cameras, there is now hard evidence of him participating in this alleged shooting, and all of that evidence can be recorded and admitted as evidence of his crime. And as hard evidence, this male is now going from the road from being a free man on Saturday evening to being a part of the criminal justice system on Sunday morning, and as he enters into the criminal justice system, he is going to learn a hard lesson about acting impulsively as he goes from being out here in street clothes into an orange jumpsuit and entering into the criminal justice system, where he's now going to have to follow the code of the penitentiary instead of the code of the street. And what's going to happen to him is he's going to find that the world of jail and prison are completely different than the streets, because in the world of jail and prison, it's run by the COs as related to the structure of the penal system, and it's run socially by the people who run the social aspects of the prison: Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, Big Dave, Melvin, and Mr. Sprinkles. And they are basically going, this guy is going to go from being a guy who was on the inside of the gang to the inside of the penitentiary, where he will be traded for Little Debbie snack cakes, ramen noodles, packets of Crystal Light tea and lemonade, packets of Taster's Choice coffee, packets of Kool-Aid, snack pack puddings, off-brand Oreo cookies, off-brand lemon cookies, Kit Kat candy bars, peppermint gumballs, tasty cake cakes. I mean, they are going to be trading this guy back and forth and spit roasting him, and after they all finish, Mr. Sprinkles is going to be sprinkling special sauce all over his face, and this 22-year-old male will find out that he's not a man as related to the penitentiary system after they break him down, because he thought he was a big man on the streets with a firearm, but he's going to find that in the penitentiary, he's not the man he thinks he is. And sadly, this is going to happen because this male didn't understand how to be a man and didn't understand how to navigate life as a man. And because he didn't understand how to navigate life as a man, he didn't know how to go out here and go to the bars and restaurants and just have his good time and then go on with his life. And now that he doesn't know that, he's now going to have to go on with his life inside of a penitentiary. Now, as this case was reported originally, there were efforts by the mainstream media to try to call it a mass shooting, but this was not a mass shooting at all. No, this was a shootout between two gangs of individuals, I believe. And in the case of this whole shootout, there was an early effort by the mainstream media to try to spin it as a mass shooting. Now, the mainstream media has been trying to conflate these kinds of shootings into mass shootings because a lot of people wind up getting shot, but there is a clear definition of what is a mass shooting and a shootout, but the mainstream media wants to conflate the two because they don't want white men to become the face of mass shootings and the terrorism associated with mass shootings. Now, originally when this story was reported, there were efforts to try to say that it was a mass shooting because recently Robert Card had participated in a mass shooting where he wound up murdering 19 people, and as he murdered, I believe, 18 people, people wanted to try to say that this was the same type of incident, but there is a clear difference between the two because a shootout is something that is done impulsively by individuals like allegedly Tyrell Phillips did as related to this incident, and a mass shooting is something that is deliberately planned by the shooter and is done with complete malice aforethought and complete intent to kill all of the individuals as related to the venues that they're going to. That's the major difference between a shootout and a mass shooting. A mass shooting is usually done and planned by the individual with malice aforethought and is done by that individual with a willful intent to kill and done with a complete plan to do so by willfully and intentionally purchasing firearms for the incident and willfully and intentionally purchasing ammunition, looking to deliberately murder as many people as possible. But you have the mainstream media that looks to, again, blur the lines between the two, because what they want to do, again, is make it where a white man will not be the face of mass shootings, and they would look to go out here and take crimes like the one that Tyrell Phillips, I believe that's his name, was a part of, and look to make that the same thing. And they do this because they want to try to make the face of mass shooting to be black, even though the face of mass shooting is mostly white males. What they want to do is, again, go out here and have you believing that black people participate in mass shootings. And yes, there are some black people who do participate in mass shootings, but the mass shooter has a clearly different pattern than what was presented here. And what was presented here is what happens when you have a beta male who is inebriated and his inhibitions are lowered, and what he does is act impulsively, and he acts impulsively, again, never thinking about the long-term ramifications of his actions, and never understanding that just trying to get in with people by hurting other people only hurts you, and the only person who's going to be hurt at the end of the day, besides the unfortunate victims in this shooting, the 22-year-old and the 14-year-old, who I'm just wondering how this person was out on the streets, because a 14-year-old should be home in bed and not on the streets of a club. I mean, that just shows poor parenting. So I look at this whole situation, and again, the person who is going to be suffering at the end of the day is 22-year-old Tyrell Phillips in the penitentiary, because with all of the hard evidence, he's definitely going to get either life in prison or wind up in the state of Florida's death penalty now that Ron DeSantis is in charge. And you know how he thinks about black males. Again, this guy is getting ready to get barbecued, so this guy didn't really think about his future because he never had anybody to teach him proper male life skills or male survival skills, and because nobody taught him, he went out here using this gun, never understanding that there are consequences to your actions when you pull out a firearm. Now, there will be some who will want to argue that this whole incident happened because of gun control laws, but this has nothing to do with gun control. No, with many of the incidents regarding shooters, it really doesn't have anything to do with gun control. No, we've had guns legal in our country for many years, and what happens when it comes to guns is because we had fathers in the home to establish structure and order for using those guns. We had lower crime rates in the periods from the 1900s to the 1950s, and we had fathers in the home, and as they regulated the use of guns in their homes, this led to the lowest homicide rates, and those homicide rates remain low until the rise of the feminist movement and the rise of the cultures of the sexual revolution and the drug cultures of the 60s. That is where we started to see an increase in shootings. That's when we started to see an increase in gun violence, and we also started to see an increase in use of illegal guns. That's where we started to see the increase in use of guns, because we started to see a complete breakdown of the American family. And as we started to see the breakdown of the American family, that's when we started to see the increase in shootings and mass shootings and people acting impulsively and participating in violent behavior like shootouts like this. And because many in America don't want to hold America's women accountable for the increase in gun violence due to the dysfunctional way that they were parenting under feminism, which told them that they did not need a father in the home to raise boys, and that a woman could raise a boy to be a man. What they want to do is go out here and say that guns are the issue, when in actuality it's the family that's the issue. And sadly, America doesn't want to confront the issue of the family, and they don't want to confront the issue of the family, even though we are seeing an increase in frequency of this violence. And the reason why we're seeing an increase in frequency of this violence is because America refuses to acknowledge that the man crisis has to do with the crisis of the family. And the reason why we have a crisis of the family is because we don't have anybody who wants to acknowledge that that America messed up by abandoning fathers and walking away from its men, and don't want to see that we have a man crisis because we did not make an effort to invest in our men. And because we didn't want to invest in our men, this is why we have a man crisis in this country, where we have males acting impulsively at every moment, never once thinking that their actions have consequences and that there's a cause and effect to their actions, and the cause and effect to their actions can either lead to them losing their lives or losing their freedom. And the solution to the man crisis, again, is very simple. We have to invest in our men as related to teaching them male life skills, male survival skills, and providing them with a foundation for success, like getting them jobs and giving them structure and order. These are the things that we can do to start alleviating the man crisis. But America doesn't want to acknowledge the man crisis because, again, acknowledging the man crisis means holding women accountable, and many American men don't want to do that, and most corporations don't want to give up the hours that would be needed to provide boys with structure to become men. So this is why we're seeing all of these incidents go on here in America at a more and more frequent pace. And what's really sad here is that we see what happens as related to something as a Halloween party that should have been fun. Instead of it being fun, it became a tragic event, and it became a tragic event because men in crisis went to that party and turned a party into chaos. Now, if you want to learn more about what leads to males becoming dysfunctional and winding up on the road to participating in the behavior that leads to them becoming men in crisis, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBook Store, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you want to see me make more videos about the man crisis, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Horror of a Hyena Woman. Hell's Aspiring Angel takes on a wicked werewolf in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Horror of a Hyena Woman in paperback and e-readers today.
Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.